Hello and welcome to the Browns Blitz. Today is Wednesday, January 5th of 2022. This is episode number 131. I'm your host, Rod Bloom. Joining me today is my brother, Jeff. Hey, Jeff, how are things going?
They are going pretty well, Rod. Hey, just before we get started here, I want to do something I don't normally do, but my buddy Mark had knee surgery today. He's a big Browns fan down in North Carolina, and he is the other half of the most formidable cornhole team in the history of the city of Aurora. And I just want to wish him all the best. And Mark, I know if you attack physical therapy like you attack everything else in life, I know you'll be just fine.
Excellent. Well, hopefully everything goes well for him, and hopefully he has a speedy recovery. So great. Joining us tonight is our guest, Susan Fisher, and you can follow her at Brownstown76. Susan, how are things going?
Doing well. Thank you for asking. I appreciate you guys asking me to be on.
Absolutely. We love talking to fans and getting different perspectives and just kind of giving everybody a chance to come on and have their say. So looking forward to talking to you. Before we kind of dive into things here, we're gonna take a look at our Blitz beverages, see what everybody's drinking tonight. And Susan, since you're the guest, we're gonna let you go first. So why don't you tell us about what you have there?
Nothing very creative. It is a Miller High Life. Pretty basic, but after this past weekend, I think I needed a pick-me-up, get to a higher life. So that is what I am drinking this evening.
That sounds good. Nothing wrong with that. So how about you, Jeff?
Just a little Chardonnay tonight, Rod. Didn't feel like braving the cold to walk out to the beer fridge.
Okay, well, Jeff, I'm drinking something I think you might enjoy, but for a different reason tonight. I'm drinking a shock top twisted pretzel. I don't know if you've had one of these or not, but they figured out a way to get the pretzel taste into the beer, and they did a nice job of it. So you can taste the pretzel, you can taste a little bit of salt with it. It's 5% alcohol. It's just pretty much a regular beer, but it's got some pretzel taste to it. So
sweet.
So if you see this, I think you'd like it. So definitely give it a shot. Give it a shot if you see it. Nothing crazy, good. But I think you really enjoy it. So yeah.
Beer with my favorite snack food.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't tried having pretzels with the twisted pretzel, but I assume
that would just be redundant.
It probably would be. I don't need the pretzels. It's already in there.
You could just take a spoonful of nacho cheese and wash it down with the twisted pretzel.
There you go.
Yeah, that's all I needed was some cheese to dip my beer in.
There you go.
All right, guys. So this is the part of the show where we let the guests tell us about their Browns fandom. So Susan, I'm going to turn it over to you and just kind of let you tell us about how you became a Browns fan, any highlights or lowlights, or anything you'd like to share with us about your life as a Browns fan.
Well, I would have to say I became a Browns fan right at the end of the Sipe era, beginning of the Kozar era. And I learned all I learned from my brother, my dad, family. I have family in Cleveland. But my love of the Cleveland Browns started then with Bernie Kosar and Kevin Mack and Biner and all the greats. And as I learned the sport and the players and the positions and the penalties, just grew to love the game itself, the game of football itself.
Mhm.
But Cleveland just has a special spot in my heart. They always say you bleed, brown and orange, and I believe that. And it's why, you wish for the best. During the games growing up, my mom would be making, the big Sunday meal and fogging up the windows, and, we would watch the game. And my brother and I would always go out at halftime and we would throw the football around, and
Mhm.
we would try, if there was like a fantastic catch or an interception or, whatever it was, we would always try to reenact it, at halftime.
Yeah.
So it's just a memory I'll just cherish forever, those times, and it's all because of the Cleveland Browns. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. Anybody. That's the first thing that they'll say is she's a Browns fan. And it's just something that I'm passionate about. It moves me. I get excited about it. I want to share it with other people. I want to talk about it with other people. It has just been such a huge part of my life. And when my mom passed away a while ago, 20 years ago, I clung to it even harder and rooted for him even harder and really threw myself into being a true Cleveland Browns fan. And that's stuck with me, and that's where I'm at today. No matter what, I ride and die with the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, you mentioned some players back from the 80s and that. Do you have favorites from them, or do you just kind of love all those guys equally, or what?
I loved all of them. There were a few, obviously, that stick out, like Minifield and Dixon, on the defensive side. And,
Mhm.
and who I really enjoyed was Brian Brennan, Mr. Third Down Specialist. If it was 3rd and 4, 3rd and 7, 3rd and I don't care how many, man, he always caught the ball. He risked his body. He always kept those drives going. And it was he was just next level for me.
Yeah, he was sure-handed, to say the least. Yeah, and now, like you said, if he needed 3 yards, his route was going to be 4
3
probably.
yards. Yeah,
So
yeah,
exactly. 3 or 4. Yeah, it wasn't going to be 2. so yeah, definitely.
Are you referring to lately?
I could be. Yeah, we've seen a little bit of that here and there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I digress slightly.
Okay, let's digress.
Yeah, but yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing that with us. We're gonna have to talk about this game. I guess it was Monday night. Trying to forget about it, guys, honestly. But Browns go into Pittsburgh, Ben's last game. We're all hoping that the Browns are just gonna, beat the tar out of the Steelers and, make Ben cry again. And that's not what happened. Not even close. Browns lose 26-14. And I got to tell you guys, I did not see the last touchdown scored. I got to the remote before the guy got to the end zone. So I'm like, I'm not seeing this touchdown scored. As soon as he broke free, I'm like, I'm done. So that's how much of the game I saw. But 26-14, I had enough at that point. The sacks, a sack every time on 3rd down. 9 sacks, 4 or 5 batted balls, drops, bad passes. Baker's. What? I'm sorry.
Dropped passes.
drop passes. Yeah, Baker comes out of this game 16 of 38, which doesn't even seem possible. For 185, which you can live with 185, 2 touchdowns, but 2 picks, but 22 incompletions in this game. It's incredible. And Nick Chubb, and we'll talk more about Nick Chubb, but he carried the ball 12 times. Dearness Johnson carried 5. So the Browns essentially run the ball 17 times. I know Jarvis ran it once, but the running backs get 17 carries, and Baker throws the ball 38 times, and that's the game. So, all right, I'm not going to talk anymore about this game. I'm going to give it to you guys. Susan, I'm going to let you go first. Say whatever you want to say. Just let it all out.
Let it all out. I thought we were actually going somewhere, and I realize now that maybe we are, maybe we aren't. It's kind of a scary territory again for us as Browns fans, I think. We could either... There's 2 routes. We both know what the routes are. We all know, I should say, what the routes are. And frankly, I'm a little confused. You don't really know what's going on within the organization. There was a lot of, Myles Garrett should not have to call a players-only meeting. That should not happen. He should not have to say, hey, we didn't do any adjustments throughout the game, which we all know is true. The players should not be calling out the coaches. The coaches should be helping the players to their best potential, which is what they want. Am I wrong?
No, I agree with you on that. Coaches should be helping the players. Even in good organizations, there's times when players have meetings. So I don't know the whole situation. So I'm not going to judge the coaching staff based just on knowing that. Let me put it that way.
No, I get that absolutely. I didn't mean to imply all of that.
No, that's okay.
So let me just
go ahead,
let me just piggyback on the numbers that you threw out there real quick.
Yeah.
So Baker obviously had an off day, to be kind. His quarterback rating was 56.2. If that weren't bad enough, Ben Roethlisberger, for some reason, threw the ball 46 times and completed 24 of them for 123 yards, a touchdown, interception, and a 56.3 quarterback rating. This game may prove that you absolutely don't need competent quarterback play to have an NFL football game.
To have a watchable game is another story.
Now, watchable is another story, right? But this may be combined the worst quarterback play that the NFL has put on Monday night since the 1960s.
I think you're right. I think I saw a stat about that it was absolutely the worst quarterback play.
Yeah. The difference being that the Steelers ran Najee Harris for 188 yards. And we, for whatever reason, decided to abandon our run game really early. Now, yeah, we got behind, and, that typically means you're going to throw the ball a little bit more. Pittsburgh was doing some things to stop our run. But with all that said, we just quit on the run game really early and got out of what I think was our best chance to beat the Steelers. The Steelers came in with the worst ranked run defense in the league, and we came in with one of the best run games in the league. And, why you need to overthink that versus just pounding the rock. And I'm not, I'm not saying that I'm smarter than the coaching staff. Okay. But at some point, you have to take what we view to be as a superior roster and go beat the crap out of somebody with it, instead of trying to be the smartest person in the room like we talked about last week. It was very obvious that we were going to live and die with Baker's ability to throw the football in that game from probably the first series, and it wasn't there. And, you and I were texting back and forth during the game, Rod, about, what the hell are we watching? Why are we doing this? Why is Baker even in this game? At some point, you have to make the determination that winning football games is more important than proving points. Okay. And whatever point they were trying to prove in that game really fell hard on the fan base. And now this organization is going to have to deal with the fallout of that. And that's to Susan's point. That's not a fun place for us to be right now.
No, I mean, we're not too far removed from feeling like we had a coach who would be here for years, feeling like we had a quarterback who is on the edge of being our franchise quarterback, and really feeling like this franchise was set at the key spots where it needed to be set. And now people are really questioning all of that.
Right.
There's so many more details though that go into that. It's not so black and white,
No, it's not.
You have injuries, you have we had a lot of injuries. We were out a lot of players. We had a lot of people step up. But my thing is, I just wish we would have put maybe Janovich or slid Hooper to help Hudson out on the right side. Hudson did a phenomenal job at right tackle, don't get me wrong, but when you're going up against TJ Watt, you gotta chip him. You have to. That would have scared. That actually would have scared me if I had been Baker, and I'm sure he was not. But I can't imagine TJ Watt coming screaming at me, knowing he's going to get to me. That's. I don't know.
I don't understand leaving Harris, leaving him on an island again. Yeah. Leaving him on an island against Watt made no sense to me at all. James Hudson.
Or Hudson.
Yeah. But the bottom line still is that we can throw shade on pretty much everybody on the offensive side of the ball. Watching the film and watching how these guys played, I think I made the comment to you early on, Rob, that these guys looked like they were already on the plane to Cancun for the winter. Our all-pro tackle or guards played like shit in that game. Our center got called for holding on a running play that was ridiculous. Guys dropping the ball. You just spread it around. I mean, it was so clear that all of those guys had checked out well before this game. Now, maybe that's because they knew they were eliminated from the playoffs and they had a letdown. I hope it's not something deeper than that. I hope it's not, unrest in the clubhouse and all the things going back to OBJ that have been discussed. Mm-hmm. But for professional athletes to not show up for a football game like that is really disheartening. It's damning against the organization. That you're on national television on Monday night against your most hated rival. And it seemed to me like the goal for Monday night was to give Ben a big going away party.
Well, of course.
That's the network's job. That's not our job.
Correct.
Right, but
it was not fun to watch at all.
that was not. I feel the same way you did, Jeff, about the offense. I really thought the defense seemed to come like they came to play. At least a lot of the guys did. And it's not like it was their best performance of the season or anything. But the offense had so many 3-and-outs, man. Those guys are just gassed by the end of the game. The offense, didn't do much of anything.
Our defense kept us in
the defense. I thought played pretty well.
Yes.
Our defensive backs in particular, and the depth in our secondary really, really showed up for that game.
Yes.
Guys that don't normally get a lot of snaps were called on to play a lot of minutes and played exceptionally well. MJ Stewart the last 2 weeks has been phenomenal.
Outstanding.
Yeah. He's been great.
AJ Green
been fun to watch.
Had some moments. Yeah. The secondary and what we felt like was going to be the weakness of our team, or what was the weakness of our team last year, the back seven has literally become the strength of this team now. And played extremely well for as long as they possibly could. But you're exactly right. When your offense goes 3-and-out pretty much every drive, and you've got a punter punting 21 yards, it's a little bit much to expect the defense, even against a crappy offense like Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers, it's a little bit much to expect them to maintain that for 4 quarters.
And it's during that game, we did not see one slip screen, and that would have worked beautifully against that, especially with the edgers coming, as hard as they were coming, trying to get. That would have been a perfect time, and we never went to that, and we've used that in several games and multiple times, and it's always successful. I don't understand why that wasn't incorporated into the game plan.
I don't know. They usually do at least, 1 or 2 screens. They usually do a tight end screen and then they do a screen or 2 to the backs. But yeah, you're right. I don't think they did any of them. I'm going to go back to the defense, and I want to mention Grant Delpit because, he looked pretty raw at the beginning of the season, and I don't think he's probably not playing like an all-pro or anything, but I really think he's come along. He looks like he's playing a lot better. He's really starting to look like a piece that the Browns can, that they can build around in the future.
I think he has really great instinct, actually. He just kind of seems to know where to be, and, which is nice to see because he is so young. I agree. He's been great this year for us.
Yeah, and it's too early to talk about who's going to be around next year. We're going to talk about that all off season, so I don't really want to talk about that. But Jadeveon Clowney had 2 sacks in this game, so that takes him to 7 sacks on the season, which isn't bad as the number 2 guy.
No.
Oh, and he had the shoe toss. What in the world was that? And 15 yards on the shoe toss.
15-yard penalty for throwing a shoe.
Yeah. Throwing a shoe. I've never seen anything. Well, it goes back to like the Dwayne Rudd thing, but the shoe toss.
The helmet, yeah. But then now they can do that too. It's like whatever we do first, and then whoever follows us, they just give them a pass,
Yeah.
Our guys just have to be smarter than that, Rod.
No, I agree.
I understand it. It's the heat of battle, and guys sometimes get a little bit too into things, but you just got to be smarter than that. You got to live to fight another day, and the shoe came off as part of the tackle, and so Clowney's got kind of holding it in his hand, at the end of the play, and rather than just like dropping it on the ground or throwing it at the guy, he throws it 15 yards the other direction. What do you think's going to happen when you do that? Particularly
I think everybody thought it
all
was
the
a
officials
flag.
are standing right around you, and you're at the sideline, and everybody's looking right at you, and you're on national television. This is your opportunity to look like a professional, and you look like a fool.
Ooh, shots fired.
Yeah, so that was an obvious penalty. I saw other people complaining about this, so I'm going to bring it up. That T.J. Watt getting in Baker's face, after probably one of the sacks, should have been a taunting call. I don't understand how that didn't get called, and not that it made any difference in the game. But
Right.
officials should be watching that kind of stuff too.
There was
we knew going into the game, Rod, that the Browns are one of the most penalized teams in the league, and the Steelers are one of the least penalized teams in the league. We knew that going into the game, so we knew we weren't going to get any help from the officials. Okay, so why compound that problem by doing stupid things?
No, I agree. But
there was I can think of one time when they probably should have called a roughing the passer. I forget who it was, landed right on Baker and drilled his body weight all on it. No flags, nothing.
Yeah.
The refs
it was the Pittsburgh show. And yeah, I think they were just going to let it go. I think the officials knew what the occasion was, so they let them play.
Like the week previous, when everybody knew that Rodgers was going to take over the touchdown record up there at Lambeau Field, so don't call the pass interference with 50 seconds left. Is that what you're talking about? Wrapping it up as a gift and just gifting it to them and saying, here you go, Merry Christmas, and then we cry. We get pissed. It's ridiculous.
Well, the Green Bay game was tough. I agree with you. The pass interference calls, I think they should have been made. It doesn't mean that the Browns would have been able to kick a field goal or go down there and score or anything. But the Browns, if they would have played better in that game, they would have had a chance to win too. If they wouldn't have turned the ball over 4 times. So, I see it from both angles.
You know what? We had turned the ball over 3 times before half, and it was 15-12. So there was only 1 turnover in the second half, which means that wasn't all that bad, and we were only down by 3. So
the Browns played an excellent game that week, other than the turnovers. It was one of their best games. Period.
But I felt like the turnovers would have, were just possessions anyways, because it was early in the game. And the one, I feel like Baker kind of saw a hold on DPJ down the side as he was doing the cut in, and it was intercepted, and it was like a punt. But when he released that ball, if he hadn't have been held, guaranteed DPJ comes down with that ball. Different ball game.
I agree with you, and there have been other times this year, but I've complained about officiating a lot on this podcast this year, and I think the Browns have gotten the short end quite a bit this season, but they've had a few calls go their way here and there. I just don't know how you fix it. And I've come to kind of look at it like Jeff says, as just being it's part of the game, and you got to live with it. I don't think they're ever going to really. I don't think you're going to ever get officiating to where it's perfect. Anytime they've tried to get it perfect, like with the booth reviews and that, it really just makes the game worse. So you kind of have to live with these with the human error factor. It's just always going to be a part of the game.
There was a point in this last game, where I just wanted to see if you guys were on the same wavelength. On the defensive side, there was a toss on the left-hand side, and the way Greedy Williams played that ball, it was a thing of beauty. And all I could think is, there he is, yes, we got him. This is what he's been plugging away and doing so well. And then he ends up injured again. And I just feel really horrible. But did you guys see that play?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Greedy played
Gready's
well when he was out there.
Yeah. I mean, I think Gready's had a pretty decent year. Don't you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, when he's been out there,
the
when
defense
he's been healthy and been able to play, he's out.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably the best number 3 cornerback in the league.
I mean, the defense has not been the problem this year.
No, I mean, again, it's not talent, it's not ability to play. It's a Fetty Adenabo lining up in the neutral zone.
Yeah.
I mean, the self-inflicted stuff. You can complain about the officiating, but the self-inflicted stuff that this team has had all year long, it's those little things that are the difference between winning and losing in the NFL. These games are going to be close, and when teams are self-destructive, they're just not going to get breaks. You have to make your own breaks in this league. And you know what? You could just see Kevin Stefanski just shaking his head on the sideline, saying, okay, did I coach this guy to go out there and line up in the neutral zone? I mean, at some point, a player's got to be smart enough to look at where the damn ball is. It's not that hard.
Right.
I was going to say, it seems simple enough.
Right.
Jeez.
They should know this. But I don't know. There's just some. I don't know. I mean, you guys remember Michael Dean Perry? He used to do it all the freaking time, and he was a great player. He always lined up in the neutral zone, like twice a game. But that's. I mean, I'm kind of getting off track by saying that, but that just kind of came to mind. So.
Well,
it just goes to why this team gets bad breaks. And we can. Again, expect the officials to help us out, but the reality is we make our own bad luck with this franchise, and I think it goes to this losing culture that has been pervasive since the team came back in '99. That it's this woe is me, down in the dumps, attitude that the whole world's out to get us and everything, and we just can't go out there and play decent football. We have great, talented guys. Go play.
That's what we need, a full 60 minutes of play. There's been, halves where we have just been, it's clicked. The first 15 scripted go beautifully. Everything's flowing. And then the second half, it's just like we just blow up.
Right.
Well, the Browns have had some good games, and probably their best game this year was the game in Cincinnati. And so I'm going to shift gears a little bit because I want to bring this game up, and this team up that the Browns are playing on Sunday, and that's the Bengals who have won the division.
Right. Worst to first.
The Bengals are yeah, the Browns are 7-9 and the Bengals are 10-6. And the best game the Browns played all year was down in Cincinnati, and they absolutely just crushed the Bengals. I mean, the Bengals were out of that game from the get-go.
Yes, they were.
The Bengals had no chance in that game. The Bengals have really stuck it to some really good teams. A lot of other games put up huge offensive numbers.
One of the reasons I think, that we fared so well is because of, I think, Rod, it was you talking about our secondary and how much more improved it is. And we were really able to kind of take away Jamar Chase.
Oh, yeah. Well, Denzel Ward had an incredible game. That's where he had the pick six against Cincy, and he shut down Jamar Chase. He just plain shut him down. I think Chase had he had a few catches for a few yards, I think, but it was nothing. It was a couple catches for 20-some yards or something like that.
Nothing
in that
major.
Game. Yeah, not like the 250 yards he put up, this past week.
Exactly.
It's a big difference when you can shut guys down like that. Now, would the Browns be able to do that against the Bengals receivers every week? I don't know. I mean, the Bengals have an offense that's absolutely clicking right now. But the thing is, if the Browns could have gotten a win and the Bengals would have lost to the Chiefs, then then this game may have had some meaning. But now it doesn't. So we're going to see apparently Case Keenum, unless they decide to go with Nick Mullins, and the Bengals are going to play Brandon Allen. So Joe Burrow's not going to play in this game either. So
and I do believe Joe Mixon is not playing either. He's out with COVID.
Yeah, I would assume the Bengals would probably rest some other guys too. Would not surprise me whatsoever if they're, why should they risk injuring any of their guys at this point? So
do you guys think we should rest our big play makers for this game? Or do you want them to go out and be professionals?
The only guys I would sit are the guys are going to be around next year, and that's probably about 3 guys. Honestly. Seriously, to me, the only guys I know are going to be here next year for sure are some of some of our starting DBs, Miles, Nick Chubb, and maybe a couple of our offensive linemen. Other than that, I don't think there's a lot of guarantees on this team with the way the management's going to look at this roster. I'm not saying it's going to be turned over completely, but they're going to look at upgrades everywhere and make the ones that they feel are appropriate. So I think at this point, there's a lot of guys who probably you would have thought would have been safe that might not be safe after this season. So probably a good portion of the team is going to be back, but you're not going to know who it's going to be until next fall.
Well, I know we have Bitonio and Teller tied up too, right? We were lucky enough to get the Teller deal.
Yeah, those guys are tied up to long-term contracts. Yeah.
So we're set there. And Hunt's coming back as well, tied to Chubb. So I think.
Yeah, I don't think you'll see Kareem Hunt because he was questionable to play and was not able to give it a go last week. I don't know why you put him out there the last game of the season when he's recovering from an injury. So, I don't know what there is to gain by playing Nick Chubb in this game either. So, you're playing a backup quarterback. Put your receivers out there, kind of as an audition for next year, and see what happens. The defense, I would protect some of the guys too, probably, and not play them. That's what I would do. What are your thoughts, Jeff? What would you do with this game? Treat it like a preseason game?
Yeah, pretty much. Miles has the groin injury. You've got a bunch of other guys nicked up. There's no point in putting guys out there and getting them hurt. I would use this as an audition for the bottom third of my roster and see which guys are going to, maybe get contracts next year. The outcome of the game really doesn't matter at all to either team. And at this point, I think from a culture standpoint, this clubhouse is so badly broken that win or lose, there's really nothing to be gained. You could talk about, well, it's important to win games late in the season and create that winning culture. I think that horse is out of the barn already. So right now I'm thinking about how can I get as many guys healthy going into next year as possible, and just not giving a damn about this last game against Cincinnati.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. It doesn't matter if you end up 8-9 or 7-10. I don't know what difference it makes. It'll make a few. It'll make a little bit of a difference in where you draft, but that's about it.
Yeah, this year's draft is
interesting.
So, I'm going to use the word mediocre. There are some talented guys, but I think it's 18 to 20 deep as far as decent guys that could really impact us next year. So, being at number 10 versus number 19, there's really not a hell of a lot of difference. I mean, we're going to pass on a couple of really good players for whichever guy we pick anyway. So I don't think those few spots, I like the idea of that draft capital because, depending on what AB decides to do this offseason to restructure, particularly the offensive side of the roster, having those extra couple places of draft capital might make the difference in being able to swing the type of deal that we need him to swing. Okay, more so than the actual player you're going to end up with.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, but yeah, I agree with you. It's not going to make a whole lot of difference, and one win is probably not going to make a whole lot of difference in where they pick. Either, I wouldn't think.
No, it's a couple.
We'll see.
Here's a question for you, gentlemen. Do you guys think Stefanski would possibly play the first with Keenum, first half, and then switch it up with Mullins to see who can run his offense better? Do you think it could be like let's see how you run my offense will determine if you're on the roster next year or not kind of situation?
Well, I'll take that route. I mean, we already know that Keenum is more than likely gone next year.
His contract was through this season, right? I believe.
Well, he's under contract for next year. But most of it is
not guaranteed. I think,
right, most of it's not guaranteed. So, I mean, I would be really surprised if Andrew Berry doesn't look to upgrade the quarterback position, at least from a backup standpoint, at least. So, Nick Mullins may be your third quarterback next year if they really, like them as much as they seem to. So, what is there to be gained by looking at both of those guys? I don't think there's much to be gained at all. Case Keenum's probably done here after this game, so I think you just ride him out. And let Nick Mullins come into training camp next year and make a case for being your backup, depending on what else happens.
I think it would be good to throw him in this game, see what he can do. Let's get somewhat of a comprehensive overview of his capabilities. Don't you think?
Well, we've seen each of these guys play one entire game this season.
Yeah.
So I think they know what they have in both of them, and I agree. Keenum is probably not going to be here next season, unless he agrees to, I don't know what his non-guaranteed contract even is next year, but unless he agrees to take less money to stay here or something, which he's probably not going to do that.
He's got $1.3 million in dead money, Rod, and $6.5 million that they can knock off the cap by cutting him.
Yeah, so they're probably going to cut him and look at somebody else. I mean, I think you're right. I think they're going to look at somebody who can, either be the quarterback if Baker looks bad again next season, or at least be a guy that they can look to down the road. Keenum is not a guy for the future. So I think you're right. I think they're looking to upgrade the position. Go ahead.
That had to be the plan, even if Baker had an all-pro season this year. The plan had to be to bring in a developmental backup. Because let's face it, Case Keenum only has so much shelf life, right? So they needed
he's
to
not
come.
Going to be on team forever.
Right, they needed to bring somebody in as a developmental number two for either next year or the year beyond. So whether that's in the draft or the waiver wire or via trade or however that happens, I think they're going to bring in a second quarterback next year, no matter what. And that's probably the guy that's going to get the bulk of the preseason snaps next year. Whether Baker is on this team or not, that's going to be the guy that they're going to really take a hard look at in, preseason next year.
I agree.
It's going to be interesting because, I mean, Nick Mullins is not a guy who they're going to look at as a potential starter, but he has experience. He's a guy I'm sure they like as a backup, whether it's 2 or 3 on the team. So it'll be interesting to see if Nick Mullins, how much of a chance he has to have a spot, or if they feel like they need to drop him in order to bring in more guys to try to find somebody to compete, to be the number 2 or potentially the number 1 guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of interesting.
Absolutely. How do you guys feel moving forward about offensive line? We had a lot of setbacks. So I'm referring to depth. I know we have some studs on our offensive line. We have some issues we need to address, but overall, how do you guys feel we need to address that, like free agency, or do you think we should solely just stick with the draft?
I think they'll continue to address it through the draft. I don't think they're going to sign. They have enough money tied up in the offensive line already. I don't think they're going to sign anybody. I'll say that I do not think they will sign anybody as a free agent to the offensive line, just due to the money that's tied up there and due to the guys that they already have on the team. I think they'll. I think if they see the right lineman in the draft at the right spot, I don't think they're going to be afraid to take somebody. If they had the right guy sitting there in the 2nd or 3rd round, I could see Andrew Berry pulling the trigger on a right tackle or a center or something like that. Just because if he feels that's the best guy available, I could see him doing it. If it's not, then I think the Browns are still in a pretty decent position, but they do need to keep bringing guys in because our guys are not getting any younger, some of them.
Well, I think the wild card here is Jack Conklin and his patellar tendon tear. What does that look like? Once he's healed up, and what do they do at right tackle long term? James Hudson was drafted to be the developmental swing tackle. I don't think anybody imagined that a 4th round pick was going to be a starting right tackle this year.
No.
And probably not in 2 or 3 years. I think he has the potential maybe that far down the road, but realistically, he was brought in for the Kendall Lamb role. After Chris Hubbard went down, it left us pretty thin at tackle. And then losing Jack Conklin really, made it tough. So, I think that it makes it really difficult to go out and try and sign another right tackle, not knowing what Jack Conklin's going to be capable of next year. So you almost have to ride with that. In terms of draft, to me, the guy I'm going to watch is Tyler Linderbaum, because he is a perfect replacement for J.C. Tretter. I mean, from a wide zone blocking perspective, an athletic center, a guy who can, open holes for our run game. He is probably as ideal fit a center as you will ever see for the Cleveland Browns. And if he's sitting there wherever we're picking, it's going to be really, really hard to say, let's take a wide receiver instead of a potential future Hall of Fame center.
I'm talking 1st round, obviously.
In the 1st round. Now this draft is deep enough.
Cincinnati did that, and they did pretty well, don't you think?
Well, yeah. I mean, this draft is deep enough at wide receiver that I think we can find, an impact guy in the 2nd round. And at tackle, there's always going to be those developmental guys. But I just
We
don't
have one
think
of the
we're going to
best
find
in
anybody who's going to be ahead of James Hudson.
We have one of the best in
Yeah.
the business coaching these guys too. So, just keep
Yeah.
bringing them in. He will develop them the right way. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I forgot about something in the Steelers game. We were talking and people were all upset about about Nick Chubb and the number of carries he had. And I don't want to dwell on that too much because, at some point it seemed to me that, I thought maybe that they were just not wanting to give Nick a bunch of carries because the game didn't have meaning and things like this. But so I could see either side of the Nick Chubb and the carries. But Nick Chubb left us with a moment that we'll remember for the rest of our lives in that game, and that was the stiff arm he had on the Steelers DB, who tried to come in at a bad time and get Nick in a tackle, and it didn't go so well. And I don't know about you guys, I still haven't gotten tired of watching that yet. And I kind of feel bad for the Steelers guy if it's possible.
No.
Have you guys ever seen? I mean, I've seen some nasty stiff arms from guys.
Yes.
But man, that was ridiculous what he did to
Nick
that
did
guy.
one earlier this year too, I think. Hey, what a weapon that is for a running back.
Absolutely.
You saw Najee Harris do it to MJ Stewart earlier in the game as
did
well.
It to MJ Stewart, and then Nick Chubb did his, and it's like, it's like you guys. You remember the Crocodile Dundee movie?
That's a knife.
That's a knife. Oh, that's not a knife. This is a knife. Everybody's listening to the show going, what? Huh?
What? Yeah, all the young kids are going, what?
Yeah. You think that's a stiff arm? This is what a stiff arm looks like.
Right.
Oh my gosh! But
you got to take the fun spots whenever they are in a game, and there were damn few of them. So I'm glad he gave us that.
There were very few of them. He gave us that, and it's something we'll never forget from that game.
Right.
You know what I think actually is the biggest impact player on our defense, to be honest, has been Clowney and the stopping of the run game. The way he's able to peel and attack is incredible. And Miles comes screaming off one side, him doing that on the other, and it's just there's nowhere to go. Watching those two, I pray that he comes back because I want to see more of that next year.
You know what's funny, Rod, is when the Browns signed Tack McKinley, we were talking about what they were going to do on the defensive line and how they were going to fill the D tackle positions and everything as we were looking at the roster. And Jadeveon Clowney really wasn't even on our radar at that point. Nobody thought, well, maybe the Browns will go sign Jadeveon Clowney, right? Because he was up in the stratosphere in his ask for salary.
Right.
And
right.
We never even considered him coming.
He had already been here and then walked away, right?
Right. And we had gone after him in the past and never been able to. And so, now you look at it like, well, geez, I mean, now that he's been here for a year and, hopefully feels comfortable with the organization and likes playing opposite Miles and so forth, maybe he sees that fit and, really wants to be here and so forth. But I got to tell you, Jadeveon Clowney's not taking a hometown discount for anybody, and he's going to demand $20 million in his next contract for at least 2 or 3 years, and the odds of that happening here, I think are pretty slim.
Yeah, I think you're right, Jeff. But you just look at his career, and I don't have his stats up in front of me, but he's a guy who's always had all this great potential. He was taken number 1 overall, right? He had that huge hit on that guy in college, and he's lived off that hit forever. You know, and he's played well. He's always been a guy who's done well against the run, and his sack totals have been very sporadic. I don't, if I'm correct, he either didn't have any sacks last season or had one.
Yeah, none.
Yeah,
none
he's had he's had almost
he only
no
played 8
sacks.
games, so. Yeah.
Yeah, so go back a year before that if you have his stats up, and you know he's had very few sacks the last few years.
3 the year before. His 2 best years were 17 and 18, where he had 9 sacks. So yeah, he's pretty close to a career year this year.
Playing with Miles.
He's also struggled to stay healthy though too. That also.
Well, that's it. Yeah, those 2 years, 2017, 2018, he played in 85% of the snaps. This year, he's played in 60% of the snaps, and that's about the second best year of his career. So, from a availability standpoint, he's been good enough to make us want more, but you have to wonder how sustainable that is.
Right. So, maybe he'll, I guess it depends what the Browns think going forward and what he thinks. He thinks, he looks at the stats and says, hey, I was able to do this here. If I go somewhere else and I'm on my own, I've got another 1 sack year coming up if I take a 1-year deal somewhere else. So
you're exactly right. Exactly right.
Yeah,
that's what I was
could happen.
Say. You go ahead,
he's
go somewhere else and get more money, but you're not going to be able to get to the quarterback as much. Opposite Myles Garrett, there's just no way.
Well, yeah, I mean that's why these guys take these discounted contracts for 1 year, is to go out there and prove that they're worth the long deal. Like I said, I would love to see him come back. I think it's been a really good fit. I'm just not going to hold my breath that's going to happen. I think the Browns are going to end up going out and finding somebody else like that. That will come in and play on the same kind of a contract, and hopefully backfill behind that with some other guys like Tack and some draft choices or whatever. But when you got Myles Garrett, you don't have to have you got Batman. You don't need. I hate to use that running back analogy, but you got Myles Garrett on one end. You don't have to have the second best guy in the league on the other side.
Why don't we just sell the farm, go up for the number 1 pick, and take Hutchinson from Michigan? Just get it over with.
Yeah. 2-3 months ago, I was looking at Aiden Hutchinson as being a guy that would be down, around where we would be picking. Jesus, he's played himself into the number 1 or 2 pick probably, and whoever gets him is going to get a great player.
His motor is phenomenal. His bend is phenomenal.
Yeah. But again, we don't need that guy on the other side. It would be a great luxury to have that guy, but there are guys in the second round that I think can give us that kind of production opposite Miles.
Impact the game the same. Yes.
Yeah.
I think
you don't want to be the 49ers to just draft a defensive lineman every year for like 6 straight years in the first round.
Right.
Or the Lions, who I think drafted wide receivers how many years in a row? I forget.
It was like 8 years or something crazy. Yeah, and almost none of them panned out. I mean, a couple of them, but yeah, crazy. So guys, before we give some score predictions for this meaningless game, Doug Deacon announced his retirement from I guess from calling games. So from being in the Browns, essentially in the Browns organization for forever.
51 years.
51 years. So you guys have thoughts on Doug Deacon's retirement?
Doug Deacon has been with the Browns organization as long as I've been a fan. I mean, I watched Doug Deacon play. And, at that point in time, I think he was the 3rd left tackle, something like that in the history of the Browns organization.
Right.
That's right. I mean, so what a great guy, from a longevity and just a fan standpoint. I mean, he was a huge fan of the team, and it's just another one of those guys that you're going to miss hearing on the radio. But I wish him well in retirement, and I'm sure this season must have been really hard on him.
He may have been planning to do a couple more years. Yeah.
He was thinking, gosh, this after all these years, this will be the year I finally get to see him go deep in the playoffs. And then this year happened, and he's like, forget it. But yeah, he's been a joy to listen to, and I really wish him the best in retirement.
Yeah,
I want to wish him the best as well. He, like you said, he's a Cleveland staple. Anybody that follows knows. And it's going to be different moving forward, not hearing his voice and hearing the calls. I wish him the best. And, maybe he can still continue to do commercials.
Right.
Yeah, hopefully. So hopefully they'll bring somebody in. Got to be somebody hometown to take his spot. Hopefully we'll know that before too long. So we will see. So let's throw out some totally meaningless score predictions for this totally meaningless game on Sunday. I'm going to go last this time, just because I'm more comfortable in that position. Because I don't have a score yet. I think so. So Susan, what do you think is going to happen in this game? Give me a score on who you think's going to win. I guess the Browns are favored by 5 in this game. Is that right?
Jeez.
I think so.
Like that means anything, but.
Well, a lot of people say it's the last game. It doesn't mean anything, but for me as a fan, it does. And I want us to go out there and put forth all the effort and leave it on the field. And I want to come away with the W. And I think we can do that. I honestly do. I don't think it's going to be a pretty game, but I think we are going to come out with a W. They have, unfortunately, the reason I say that is because the other team is without, their sitting players, COVID, so on and so forth. But it means something for us fans. And damn it, I want the last game to be a W.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Cleveland 20-17.
2017 Browns. Okay. What do you have, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm just going to basically flip that and say 21-17 Cincinnati. I still think they have more to play for than we do. So our guys are going to probably take the week off again, and we'll put some points up, but it'll be too little, too late, just like against Pittsburgh.
I just don't know why, but I'm gonna pick the Browns. I think the defense will show strong in this game, and I don't know. I think whoever plays quarterback will have a nice game, and I think we'll end up doing okay. And I've got 19-12 Browns.
19-12. Well, yeah. We are the best damn fans in the land.
That's right. So let's get some closing thoughts, and then we're gonna shove on out of here. So Susan, we'll let you go first with any closing thoughts or anything you'd like to leave everybody with.
Well, it's unfortunate that we're not going to make the playoffs, but I don't think that all hope was lost on this year. I honestly don't. I know we can continue to move forward in the right direction. I think more accountability would be good. Seems like in the future, all across the board. I'm looking forward to the draft, see who we pick up. I hope we retain quite a few players. We know big name players that are signed, but some of these other players have really stepped up when we've really needed them to. And I hope they come back with us. As far as I know, everybody wants to know about the quarterback position. I'm down with whoever they decide to go with, as long as they feel it's right for our franchise. I won't lie. I will back Baker. I'm a Baker fan. I ride and die with 6. I love his passion. I think he was thrown under the bus a little bit. But at the same time, I also feel like he maybe let his competitiveness get the best of him to put him on the field. That's a little iffy, and that's strictly my opinion. But I hope he is back, and I hope we can build and get better. We have Chubb and Miles, and to waste the talent that those two guys have in their prime makes me very upset and stressed and sometimes cry. So I just hope, next year we can all stay healthy and make it back to the playoffs, guys.
Sounds good. That you can follow Susan at Brownstown76. Jeff, do you have closing thoughts for us?
Yeah, on Baker, I just want to say I wish him the best with his surgery, and I hope it goes well and it's successful, and he can come back fully healthy next year, whatever that looks like for him and the Browns. We're gonna have a lot of time to talk about positions and rosters going into 2022, but I will say this team needs to get better, and whatever has to happen from a roster standpoint, I'm going to trust Andrew Berry to make the right decision. I trust him to upgrade every other position on the roster. So I will also trust him to upgrade the quarterback position. And if that means that he brings in somebody that I have to hold my nose and root for, I'm going to do that, because ultimately we want to get to the promised land with this team. With all that said, I'm going to also be holding my breath after this Cincinnati game, because I know what this organization's history is. And all I can say is, Jimmy, for God's sake, don't do it.
That song, Jimmy, don't take your gun to town.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it. I love talking Browns. I'll talk Browns all day long. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on, Susan. This
Nice
has been the
talking to you,
Browns
Susan.
Blitz.
I'm sorry?
This
Nice
has been the
talking to you,
Browns
Susan.
Blitz, and we will catch you next time.